Welcome once again, everybody, to Irish Sports Daily Power Hour. I'm your host, Mike Frank, here with Jamie Uyeyama. We're going to talk some Irish football today. Of course, they've had a week off and a week to kind of evaluate, assess their play. We just watched the Marcus Freeman press conference. He had some comments there that I'm sure we're going to get into. Before we get everything going, though, I wanted to mention once again, it's a great time to sign up for Irish Sports Daily. Go to the front page, click on the premium section. You can sign up today. Also wanted to mention our first sponsor, which is H2 Pickleball, founded by alum Todd Hill, is teaming up with fellow alums Jack Gibbs and Will Howells, who's a top 10 pickleball pro, to bring ND fans the ND Pickleball Crew League. Besides football, what's a better way to connect and engage ND fans than through pickleball? Membership is free, and members will have access to special pickleball events and discounts. The first event will be a tournament held before the Purdue game with medal rounds played on campus. A portion of the proceeds will go to the Rockney Athletics Fund to support our student athletes. Contact Todd at 574-339-5195. Join the league, and be sure to visit H2 Pickleball facility in Mishawaka when you are in town. H2 Pickleball is located at 55801 Evergreen Plaza Drive in Mishawaka. Once again, you can contact Todd at 574-339-5195. All right, Jamie. I mean, we've had a week. We've kind of went through the whole thing. Mark Freeman had his thoughts on it. I don't think we learned anything really new today. It's one of those things where I think everything was addressed this week. I think you go into practice, everybody watched the film. They know what it looked like. They know it was not up to standard. I think a lot of people think that Marcus Freeman is like this kind of mild-mannered guy that you see in the press conference. That's not who he is.
No, that is not him. No.
He is very much an animated guy. He doesn't like curse or blow people up as much, certainly when the media is around. But if you know anything about him after the fact, when we're not around, he's a guy that'll get on people. And I am sure he's a competitor, and he was not happy with the way things went. I'm sure that this has been addressed as far as the coaching staff through, the leaders of the team, the six leaders that they have. And I'm sure it's been addressed to the team. But here's the big question. Do you think it gets fixed? Can this be fixed in time? Because I've watched Texas A&M, pretty good team, and Marcel Reed starting to throw the bit better. I wouldn't say the first game he was on fire, but it looked pretty good in this last game. I know that there's been some injury, but I have a feeling he'll be back, and Hoon will be back. And so I don't think you have to worry about that, but will this be addressed? Do you think Notre Dame can fix this in this short amount of time?
Yeah, I would be shocked if they didn't. Like, I don't think that they're I don't think anything changed in terms of like the level of talent that they have on the team. Like, obviously that didn't change. Like, I think guys that played bad, we've seen them play well. I don't imagine those guys are going to continue to play bad. And I also think that there's enough guys there in terms of depth that if certain guys don't play at a certain level, well, they need to feature other guys. And he talked today and he didn't mention anything. There was no change on the depth chart. There was no, injury updates with anything, but they're not going to reveal anything. And there was like almost too many questions to ask. Like, are you going to feature Jaden Greathouse more? Or are you going to do this more? Like, or all these other little pieces. I imagine that there's going to be so many of these things that are different for this week in terms of what they do, in terms of who they feature, who they challenge, which guys like got pushed during the bye week. Cause he's not going to tell us like, oh, by the way, like Anthony Knapp had to earn his job back or something like that. Like, he would never reveal any of that. I'm not saying that happened. I'm just saying that as a hypothetical. Like, that's something that, he would never reveal that kind of thing, but that's the kind of stuff that happens after a game like that and into a bye week where they push guys. And I think you can go back to even like everybody will remember the year where Darius Walker did play in the first game, right, against BYU, and then they brought him out for the next game, and all of a sudden he was like a featured guy. He was the guy for Notre Dame. That kind of stuff happens. And I'm not saying that it's going to happen with just guys who didn't play, but guys who maybe weren't as big a part of all, like the game plan or what they wanted to do. We certainly talked about the things about like protecting CJ Carr with how they called the game at the beginning. You don't have to do that as much at home in his second game. So I think there's going to be a lot of changes this week.
Do you think changes in game plan, changes in play calls, changes in personnel? How are you feeling?
All of it, I think, Mike. I think that there's going to be, they're going to approach things. And obviously, too, it's based on opponent, right? Like you're going to change things based on your opponent, and you're going to play Marcel Reed a lot different than you played Carson Beck, right? Like they're two very different quarterbacks. So I think that, has a lot to do with it. And also like the offenses are very different in terms of like they have a lot of speed at receiver. And out of like certainly the guys they brought in like Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver, but they are built up front to run the ball and be more of a 12 personnel team. And you're going to combat things in a different way. And also Reed holds on the ball a lot longer than Beck. So you're going to see different things. You're going to attack it in different ways. You can play man coverage a little bit more probably against Reed because you don't have to worry about like, we got to show him these different looks or anything. Like they don't have to worry about like the mind of Marcel Reed. They got to worry more about like his legs and
yes.
what he can do, right? So there's just a lot of things that I would expect to be different in terms of also one thing that he did talk about that Marcus Freeman did talk about was you got to like coach to the strengths of your guys. And he talked about that experience at Florida State. And I mean, he sometimes you have to kind of read between the lines between Marcus Freeman because he's never very specific. He never calls anybody out. He protects his coaches. He protects his players. It's a pretty good indication they're going to like do more to coach to the strengths of the guys. And also mentioning how KVA and Boubacar made those plays that weren't like the best like assignment plays, but those guys just went out and played fast, physical. That is Notre Dame football. That is what he wants Notre Dame football to be. And that's what they were last year. And I'm sure there was like a heavy emphasis on that.
It's a good question. And there's a couple things that are going through my mind. I read the chat during the Marcus Freeman press conference, and people always, the damn media, they never answer the tough ask the tough questions. Well, you got to ask a bunch of questions about offensive line, and because the offensive line didn't play well. What was his response? It's the same thing that it's always going to be. And that's what the fans don't get. It's like we can ask him 100 questions, but he's going to answer it the same way every single time. And that is he's not going to throw anybody under the bus. And he's just going to say, I have confidence in him. That's what he's going to say. You know why? Because that's his job, right? He's not going to go out there and say these things that are going to upset his team. But it's behind the scenes as far as that's where the changes need to be made, not what he says in a press conference. It has nothing to do with his team, what he says in a press conference. And so I think the interesting question is, because that was what stood out to me too, Jamie, was the fact that he said, we got to coach to the strengths of our team. I think both you and I agree the way they played defense was not to the strengths of their team. And I got to figure that's been addressed. And I think that, Marcus Freeman has to go into Chris Ash and say, look, we're going to play defense differently. We're going to have to because we're not built this way. Do you think that conversation has happened? And also, if you're Chris Ash, how would you take that?
I mean, if he took it the wrong way, then why did you take the job? You know what I mean? Like, it's like everyone has a boss. Like Marcus Freeman has a boss, right? The president of the university has bosses. The board, like everyone has a boss. Mike, if I you come to me and you say, "Hey, do this." I'm like, "Yeah, of course, you're the boss, right?"
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Don't
How
add
often
anything
do I
else to
do
that.
that?
No, you don't.
Yeah,
You
I know.
don't.
I
But
know.
but but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's everyone has a boss, and if there's something that needs to be addressed or whatever, it's like you it doesn't have to be like constructive, or it doesn't have to be like negative criticism or something. You did a bad job, but any kind of feedback, it's like, hey, you did a good job there. Do more of that or whatever. You listen to your boss. Like, that's part of the job. That's part of why you took the job. If he thought he's going to have total autonomy over everything and Marcus Freeman was not going to, you can't be a coach anywhere where that's going to be the case. Right. And so I'm sure that Ash, like, listened to it. And the other thing too, I'll kind of stick to this because I've been saying it like basically the whole offseason, like, he doesn't want, there's no way Chris Ash says, like, well, we're doing it my way. And if my way gets me fired, then so be it. No, there is no chance. He will never get another opportunity like this again.
I agree.
If that happens. So I think whatever Marcus Freeman and the staff collectively, whatever, what they were, sharing with him, I think he, maybe he, argued back his points for why he did certain things or whatever. There's no way that if Marcus Freeman, I do think Marcus Freeman told him, like, hey, we got to change this, and this, or whatever. I just see there's no way that him really like fighting back against it. Maybe they didn't fully change to every single thing, but they definitely are going to make changes because it just wasn't the standard of what it was. And I think, there's a difference too when what he said about, you keep it mostly the same schematically, but they didn't play the same. It's like, well, why didn't they play the same? And if they didn't play the same, then what is that? Because that is coaching, right? That is coaching. And the position coaches didn't change. He's the only change there. And maybe Freeman, maybe it's also, he maybe looked at himself, reflected back on it and thought that if maybe I should have done this different. Maybe we should have approached this things different in terms of how physical we were, or we needed to back it down or whatever. Right. But there's no way they came into that week. They said they did a lot of good on good during the bye week. And I mean, I think you would have to, and I'm sure that they challenged it. And in every ways, when they're talking about like, you got to challenge everything, he challenged him.
The way they played, Jamie, was what was confusing to me. It was like the antithesis of everything that they were last year, right? It was just kind of like grab bag, no reason or rhyme to what you're doing, very passive, very read and react, very tentative. Do you think that is a coaching situation where they just didn't have them mentally prepared for the right situation? Do you think that that is a team leadership issue where the team leaders didn't get the team focused? Do you think it was game plan? Do you think it was a combination of all those things? Why do you think we saw what we saw?
I'm not really sure. So I would say that it was probably a combination of all those things. I will say that I did notice with like the player availability last week that there was a lot of like, well, we've played in this, so shouldn't be a big like. And I'm not saying they didn't give it the respect it deserved to leading into Miami, but there was, I thought a little bit dismissive of like, kind of like what you needed to get up for the moment. I just, that was my read on it, like listening to that and thinking about that.
Agree.
And so, and honestly, if I don't even, who knows? I don't know that. Yes, been there, done that mentality from Greg. I think there was a lot of that. And because it's like, well, we went into Texas and not even that, we went into Texas. Well, it's hot in Texas A&M too. Like, well, it's different the humidity is different there. Texas heat is different than like there's all of these other pieces that go along with it. And also the players that you guys are like all of this where, Bane is just like Scourton. Well, Bane is better than Scourton and all these things that you're going to go with. I didn't think that they sounded like they gave Miami and the environment and the whole situation. It didn't sound like they gave them enough respect. That's just was my read on it. And it was a little bit red flaggy to me, but I was like, well, I don't know. Maybe they are just that because so many of those guys have gone through it. But then when you watch the results, it was like, oh, well, I think it kind of made sense. And I don't think they're going to be answering the questions that way this week. And most of those guys who were answering that way were captains. And frankly, too, like you said, Mike, like in terms of leadership, like those guys didn't set the example out there. So they got to set a different example this week. And I mean, it really starts too. I mean, I don't know if all those guys are going to be available to the media again. We haven't got the list of which guys are, but I think that's part of it. Like, and it's something that I imagine that he met with the captains, maybe not talked about those specific comments, but talked about their approach to everything because there wasn't enough leadership from those guys.
It reminds me, and this is what used to drive me crazy, and it drove me crazy during the Brian Kelly years, and and he would talk about, well, you want to play even, you don't want to hype up one game more than the other, and this type of thing. That's a terrible approach, and I'll tell you why. It used to drive me nuts too when Notre Dame would play Boston College, and they would take this attitude like, oh, they're Fredo, they're backup college, and it's like. And that permeates the team. And they wouldn't take it serious. It's like, look, you don't get it. You can sit and make fun of Boston College all you want, but they're going to come across and try and kick your ass. And that's just the bottom line. And that's the way the Boston College played Notre Dame for years. And Notre Dame fans and really the team would go out there and almost disrespect them like they were not going to take them serious. And look at what happened every time. It was a freaking slugfest. And it took Notre Dame 2 quarters, sometimes 3 quarters to wake up and say, oh, these guys want to play. And sometimes that was too late. And I think the same thing happened in Navy to where, okay, well, we lost the one time to Navy. We don't need to. And it's like, no, you just gave Navy all the attention that all the momentum and confidence that they ever needed. So, yes, while you're physically superior to them, it doesn't matter if you're not going to play as hard as they are. It doesn't matter. And so I think that is something that coaches have to learn how to do it. You can't hype it up so great that, for a big game that you're not ready for the next game, which we saw from Texas A&M to Northern Illinois. There's just got to be a balance on how to handle that. But first game of the year, Miami, I realize they're not, these players weren't part of Catholics versus convicts. It wasn't. But when you read all the commentary of everything that Miami was saying and everything that Notre Dame was saying, it was just like completely opposite. It really was. And I think that Miami came out and played like they talked, and Notre Dame came out and played like they talked. And I think that was a big issue. Your thoughts, Greg?
Well, don't you guys think this goes back to Marcus's Achilles heel of like handling success and handling prosperity? And, like there's a reason that Kirby Smart and Nick Saban, like they make up reasons why they're underdogs, even though they never lose.
Not, yeah.
It's just like they make it up. It's figment of the imagination. And I felt like last year going into A&M, like no one thought they were going to win. It was the heat. It was the defensive line. They were going to get destroyed. And Marcus, his approach to it was completely different. He went up there hyped and screaming and stuff. He needs to figure out, how do I coach this team and get them to perform the way that they need to when they are favored, when they are the chosen ones, and highly ranked, and everyone's putting them in their playoff brackets. He's got to work on it. I mean, it is a defined weakness at this point. We've seen it every single year. He's got to figure it out.
Well, I think it's also human nature it's total human nature. Like,
sure.
I don't even put it on Marcus Freeman as like, that is like a huge weakness for him, because it's just one of these things that, because there's so many guys coming back, you expect them that they have learned their lessons, but it wasn't that approach. And there's a difference between being confident and then also like paying it was funny because I saw all the things, and maybe this is just like from following Notre Dame for so many years, but there was, he was on the pivot. Marcus Freeman was on the pivot. Pat Forty did a big article in there. And I'm like, man, these articles are just doomsday. They always end up.
Nick Saban would call him rat poison. That's what he would say.
Absolute rat poison. And there is a difference. It's like, yeah, you have dudes, but they still need to be motivated, and they still need to be put in the position. You can't just say, well, we're changing this, whatever. It's like, no, Notre Dame got there at that mentality.
But don't you think it's Notre Dame that's pushing that, and not Marcus Freeman? I mean,
100%.
This is 100%. Notre Dame does this every time. Anytime anything good looks like it's going to happen, they want to jump ahead and get in front of it to say, hey, look at how great we are. And I really think that's what
we better
happened
do this
here.
before the season, just in case they lose. Yeah. Like, I hate that. I hate it.
And I think Marcus Freeman needs to say from now on, look, I'm not doing that until we do something, right? I'm not going to get up and talk about how great we are until we
let the season go on. Yeah.
Once I earn something, then I'll stand up and say, hey, we did a good job. But I'm not going to sit here and, I think that you got to have better control over that. And I agree with you, Jamie. I just don't think they took it as personally as Miami did. And that is a problem. And you can't win football games against good teams if you don't take it as serious as your opponent does. And I think sometimes that's been a problem for Notre Dame for a long time. But go ahead.
I can tell you this too, because I mean, Texas A&M is going to come in super motivated in this game.
Oh, absolutely.
They got it handed to them last year. Like, that was not what they expected. Like, they thought they were going to be the bully, and they weren't the bully in that game. So A&M is going to come out and try with a lot to prove. And they're thinking, we didn't have our quarterback then, because it was Connor Wigman and not Reed. And now we have these different receivers, and they're thinking all these, different things. And it's different there under Elko. Like, they haven't won a game against a ranked opponent since 2014, which is like, says a lot about Texas A&M as a program in general. But that is the thing where they have that motivation, kind of like how Notre Dame had the motivation against Louisville last year, right? Where that was something that they felt absolutely disrespected by the way they lost the Louisville game in 2023. They got to have, I don't think it's going to be a problem for this game. Let me preface that. Like, it's not going to be, they're going to be motivated for this game because they were definitely on them and they definitely made changes. But you have to go in out of this game and build on that. And it's got to be like what it was after Northern Illinois last year, where it was like, after they, hit the gas pedal with Purdue, it didn't stop like the whole year. And that's how it has to be. And they have to have that same mentality. And that has to be the mentality every week. And that has to be like the mantra, really, for Notre Dame football.
I think that happened. One, because I think Marcus did a good job. But I think another thing that was overlooked is that I think the players and leadership did a good job after that, after Northern Illinois. Came out, tattooed Purdue, and then, as you said, it just built and built, and they got better and better. They had some challenges along the way. They rose to the occasion, but I think leadership is what did that. I'm concerned about that. I'm not sure they have the team leadership that they need to overcome this. And if you followed me for years and the things I've said, I've been a show me guy for a long time because I've seen a lot of teams come out, look good on paper, talk good on paper, but not show up and do what they are capable of doing. So until I see that, I have concerns. I really do. This is a scary game put on the board. This is kind of a make or break for this season. If you lose this game against Texas A&M, you now have 2 losses against really the only teams minus maybe USC who will be ranked pretty high when you play them. You're not going to have data points to go out and state that we belong in the college football playoff. If you lose your big games, you don't have the data points to say we belong. And so Marcus Freeman and these leaders need to fix it, and it needs to be fixed now. Otherwise, this could be another long day on Saturday, and I'm concerned. I think before I felt like
about that.
I know you're
I'm
not.
not
I know you're not, but I am. I'm just going to say that I'm publicly concerned because I know that I just don't know that they have the types of leaders that they need. I don't see it on offense. Defensively, I think the guys just didn't play very well. Leaders, and it's hard to, as I've mentioned many times, hard to be a leader when you're not playing well. Now, will they play better? Yeah, I think those guys will play better. And I don't think Texas A&M's run game is all that great. At least it hasn't been so far. And it's not like they've gone against great defenses so far. So, their run game isn't what it is. But I'll tell you this, their pass game, they got 2 receivers. Those dudes are dudes, man. They're really, really good players. I've watched both games, and both those guys made plays and have the ability to run away. And Notre Dame showed, hey, we'll bust in cover. So it's one of these things that is a concern of mine. I hope I'm dead wrong. I really hope so, and I think that there's a chance I will be dead wrong, because usually when you lose a game like that, you realize that we could have done so many things differently, and you fix it, and they've had a week to fix it, but I'm still concerned. Show me, all right? That's the way I look at it.
I'm fine with show me, but I don't share the same concerns with you. I'm positive they're going to come out at a much different team this week. Also, it's exactly what every single time that Marcus Freeman that they've not played up to the standard, the next game they come out and are completely different. They are the team that all of the fans want to see. That's so, and if you'd say that is probably the thing he's probably best at as a coach, is getting guys to respond after that. And I just think there's just too much on. I'm not to say that Texas A&M, there's things to be concerned about in terms of what they present as a team. And then I'm going to have the scouting report that's going to go up in a couple hours that people can check on ISD. But I do want to point out too, because you mentioned those first 2 games, they played muffins in the first 2 games. They played defenses, Utah State and UTSA are 127th and 124th in defense. That's where they are at SP plus.
Well, I think Texas A&M had something to put them there. You know what I mean? They did something.
That's opponent adjusted. That is projected. That is where they're at. It's not they're yards, whatever. That's just where they are seen on defense. They're not good teams. Those are teams. It's beating the teams that Navy beats up on, in the American Conference. That's the kind of what I mean. UTSA's got a dude at running back, and they have a half decent offense, but they don't have that. Those are teams that they should be doing that too. So I do think they have really good. They're better at receiver. They're faster at receiver. That's for sure. I don't think their offensive line is returning everybody back. They got a good O-line. They're good. I wouldn't say that they are. I have not talk about prove it. I have not seen them dominate ever. None of those guys have dominated, especially as a 5-man. I
would agree. I didn't see it so far against either team. At least in the run game. I just didn't see it. And those are teams they should dominate. In the run game.
And I will say too that I don't know, because you're never going to find out. Elko lies a lot about injuries. I don't know, and I've heard like 3 different things about Reed's injury and what that is. But let's just say it's something that is worse than there being like he could have returned. Yeah, sure. But if it's like, even if it's, I think it might be something in his non-throwing arm or whatever, but we don't know if he didn't got a concussion. We don't know what it is there. And Zune being hurt is like a huge deal.
Yeah.
If
No, I agree there.
Even if they said he would have come back, I'm sure he would have come back. But he's a guy who's been pretty healthy his whole career and has never, had to deal with anything. And if he's banged up, that's not a good thing for them. Like that, he's like, I would say next to Reed is probably their most valuable player on offense. So those are definitely things that if you coming out of 2 games where, you blood and their offense looks way more explosive and more dangerous in that aspect. And Reed, threw the ball better in those games than he has last year. Wasn't exactly pushed. And they've got they've got some dudes on defense. They're always going to have dudes on defense, but there's still some things there where like they had some issues tackling.
Secondary.
The secondary, and it's the same guys who had problems tackling last year, which obviously Notre Dame took advantage of. They have some good pass rushers. But I think the linebackers are good, but they're not the same up front. The DTs aren't the same. They're not quite as dominant there. And even though Cassius Howes, he had 3 sacks on 3 plays, and it was kind of reflective of the type of pass rusher he is. He's not a good player versus the run. He's not. So that is a thing. Like they have question marks too. And it's also like a very, very big game. It's a very big game for both of them. Like as much as Notre Dame needs to win this game, like A&M really needs to win this game too, because they kind of just need it for like the whole narrative. And then also they want to be a playoff team, and they have some other tough road games that if they don't win this game, it's going to be awful tough for them to get in.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's certainly a must win for Notre Dame. And I think for A&M, they're looking for legitimacy at this point, right? They're looking to build their confidence as a team, but also some legitimacy, saying, hey, we're a good football team. And I don't know. I think Notre Dame's looking for the same thing right now. That they're looking to show that they are a good football team. And I do think that they are. I shouldn't say that. I think that they can be a good football team. I'm not sure they are right now. But I do think that they have the pieces in place to be a good football team. I think they'll eventually get there. It's just, is it going to be too late this season? And I don't know the answer to that. How do you think things change this week for Notre Dame offensively? And how do you think they change defensively compared to what we saw against Miami?
Well, I think one thing that Freeman said today, talking about how they kind of changed a little bit of going a little bit to, horizontal with the run game. Like they didn't run duo like that. That's like a staple run for them. And easily, if you're going to say what do Anthony Knapp and, Emil Wagner do best, is work that double team on the duo and then have, one of them come off that block and get to the second level. Extremely successful play for them last year. And yeah, maybe some of that was, based on who they were playing, but still, you got to be who you are. And I think that was a mistake. So I think you're going to kind of veer back to who they are run game wise. I think you're going to see that this week on offense. And I do think they obviously didn't push the ball down the field very much. And some of that, was strategic in terms of the pass rush, what they were going to do. I think they're going to push the ball more on like first down, like the early downs. They're going to try to take some shots. I just think that's something like you have these receivers. You know, you've said you've upgraded a receiver. You saw a guy like Malachi Fields make a play like that. You know, Pauling can fly. Like Greathouse has been a great deep ball guy for them. They need to attack down the field. And I think that is going to be a change. Like, especially if you think about like what they did last year, they didn't throw the ball 20 yards down the field the entire game last year. And I think they're going to. Also, I think too that outside of like Will Lee, I don't think they don't have anybody that I would say is like, this guy's a straight up dude who will, you know, be able to like lock anybody down. And even then I would say, you know, that Malachi Fields, Will Lee, you know, their corner for Texas A&M. I think that's going to be a really good matchup.
What about, I mean, when you think about offensive, do you think, obviously, when you look at the Ty Washington situation at tight end, Notre Dame ran so much, 12 personnel. Do you think at some point you have to look at, let's maybe bring in a Will Black or maybe bring in a Sullivan Absher if Lambert is starting as your tight end, blocking tight end? Do you think you have to look at that at this point? Because if Ty Washington isn't able to help you out there, and let's be honest, Eli uncharacteristically really blocked poorly in the game. Again, we talked about him having too many reps to deal with, but his blocking was just not very good in this game, which was surprising considering the way he blocked last year. Towards the end there, he was very, very effective. Do you think at this point you have to consider that? Because Notre Dame has to get their running game going. They have two studs at running back. They have to do this in order to get things going. If you're Marcus and you're Mike Denbrock, do you look at doing that now?
I think they kind of have to. I just can't see them going through another game where they run 0-12 personnel the entire game. Like, I just don't think that's feasible to be able to do that. That's also, it has been for years. Mike Denbrock's been a big part of it, where the ability to play with at least two tight ends on the field is like a superpower for Notre Dame, because they always had good enough guys that you could do that. And especially now, there's so few teams that do it consistently that it's hard for them to like have to be able to handle it because they're not used to seeing it as much. So that has to become part of their run game. And even just for like the short yardage stuff, like I think definitely that's when you bring in like, the extra O-line and do that kind of thing. But just in general, like if Ty Washington or Larson can't do it, like they got to do everything in their power to get James Flanagan ready to play. Like that is, and I know that's asking a lot to be like, well, all of a sudden, I mean, we're not there seeing exactly how much he's taken in the offense and know all these things. I don't even care if he's just out there just to block or whatever. Like he will go out there and block. Like I know that, like he will go there and could be that guy. And even if that's his only role this year, get him ready for that role. Like, cause you just can't, what they did in that first game. Okay. A little bit opponent, specific, not that much. They would have ran some 12 personnel like that. That to me is legitimately concerning about the offense. If we don't see that again in this game, like when are you going to see it? Because that's
never thought I'd see the day. Yeah. You know what I mean? Especially as well as Notre Dame has developed and recruited tight ends that, and obviously you had some injuries and things like that, but at the same time, you got to get some stuff together here. So, all All right, wanted to mention our other sponsor, which is ESQ, founded by ND alum Ge Wang and Chicago's go-to for the best custom suits, shirts, and sport coats. As Notre Dame reloads for the season, now is the time to refresh your wardrobe and add the perfect suit, sport coat, tuxedo, or casual jacket for fall. ESQ master tailors combine the next level craftsmanship with the finest fabrics to deliver a fit that's built just for you. Now with showrooms in both downtown Chicago and Winnetka, book your custom fitting and step into confidence with Chicago's finest. Mention ISD at your appointment. Receive 10% off your entire purchase. All right. Yama, this is a big weekend for Notre Dame. It's also recruiting is a big thing. I mean, I can't stress how important it is for the future of this program that I think Notre Dame plays well, and does what they need to do to win this game. What gives you confidence that they're going to do that? What gives you confidence that they're going to step up and win this game on Saturday?
Well, I think it's exactly what I was saying before. Like, you've seen Marcus Freeman's teams, like even teams that are much less talented than this team, respond after and come out, and then also be like, not just respond and like, hey, they played better, but like we're infinitely more physical in that next game. Like, they took it personally. So, and that is a reflection of the head coach on down. So I think that you're going to see that from them. And also, I think that is what's going to be needed. I don't think they can come out and, someone brought up about the offensive line and defensive line driven program. It's like, yeah, they got to go out and show it and prove it, in this game. Like that's how you beat these teams. That's how you beat these teams. And you want to have, obviously get explosive plays and all that too. But like, when your best player is a running back, you have to run the ball. Yeah. You have to be more physical than them. You have to do those things and establish those things. So, and I think they will. Like, I think was going to be a point of emphasis, and that is going to be something to, going to be something that they really lean on in this game. And I'm fairly confident that is going to be the case. And then also too, I just saw too many of those guys that even those, we could say all those captains, yeah, they stunk or they weren't good in the game. Not all of them stunk, like you said. Like Billy Strout didn't stink, like, so I don't want to say they all stunk, right? But like, those guys are going to be better, and because I've seen them play better. I don't think all those guys, since they've now become captains, are going to be like bad players now. I just don't believe that. So I just think you're going to see a bounce back from quite a few guys in this game. And I still think there's so many guys like that are going to be better because it's at home, like a car, that is going to help him. And that is another thing. I just think the defense will get the boost from that as well. And I think that is going to be especially helpful.
Something I don't think a lot of people think about or talk about so far that I've seen is, and if you've listened to my thoughts about CJ Carr after the game, very, very high. I was very, very impressed with what he did, how he handled that environment. You talk to some Notre Dame fans and even some Miami fans who said that was the loudest that stadium had ever been. I thought he managed that whole thing in a very mature and calm manner. And that's just something you cannot teach a quarterback. I thought he handled that very, very well. But the other thing that I don't think people think about is when you look at Elko, he's now the defensive coordinator, right? He's also the guy calling the plays. He's also a very smart guy. And he also knows that CJ Carr likes to push the ball downfield. He also, like you think, Notre Dame will try and start to do those types of things. We also know it's a huge game for Mike Elko, right? If he wins this game, it's going to help excel and propel his program. So he has a very vested interest in this, him personally, to call a very good game and try and confuse, a second start quarterback in CJ Carr. I'm sure that's going to be the game plan, as it probably should be. And I think a lot of people were excited about, Bryce Underwood at Michigan, and then he came out and did not play the same way against Oklahoma. Are you confused? Are you concerned at all that second game, we've seen what CJ can do. Now we have a coordinator calling plays, probably going to try and confuse him as much as he can. And I think Notre Dame's going to have to do some things offensively to try and limit that. But do you see that as being a problem?
I don't think in terms of a second game, in terms of like they saw something on film that is going to make it easier for them to game plan against Carr, because I just don't think there's enough film based on what you saw, and especially how they used them in that first game. So, but I think also too, like everybody expects that Carr will have, he's going to be better. Like he'll be better every week. It doesn't always go that way.
Yeah,
we've seen it. It doesn't always go that way. So, not to say that he's going to do things and get more comfortable and all that. And obviously the first game is extremely encouraging. You think that it's at home, they're going to be able to do stuff like Miami obviously was able to get a jump on, the snap count and stuff like that. Like A&M's not going to have that same advantage in this game. They could do a lot more things there, but he's going to make mistakes because he's still a young quarterback, and Elko is very good, at doing those things. And I think the one question I would have though about Elko, I don't know if he totally has, like he does a great job with the blitz packages and that kind of thing to really like put pressure on quarterbacks in that sense. But he also typically does a really good job with the back end stuff. And I just don't think they have the safeties there that he really wants to be able to do everything that he wants to do. And I think that limited him last year. And that was one of the things that really hurt them. And it's the same guys this year. And frankly, I'm not sure that those guys are that much better based on what I've seen.
Yeah.
So I think that is going to be
passing plays. They gave up passing plays in those games. They just did.
Yeah.
The first two games, and those guys should not be able to run with Texas A&M like they did, and I mean, some guys were wide open, and it's like, what, that shouldn't happen to a team like Texas A&M playing against, San Antonio. You know what I mean? It's just not stuff that should happen. But not with
everybody coming back too.
Yeah. I think that my confidence in CJ Carr is very, very high, and until he does something that shakes that, I'm not going to feel any different about him, because I think he came out and what he did was remarkable. And I just think handling that moment as well as he did, and more importantly, Jamie, we talked about it on the postgame show. The last thing that Notre Dame wanted was to put it in his hands, and sure enough, it ended up there anyway. Yeah. And a lot of guys fold under that. And when you talk about the pressure that they were sending and how he was getting beaten up, and every single play there was something catastrophic happening in front of him that he had to try and avoid and still find plays. Not many people have that. So I'm excited I think Notre Dame has what could be a special quarterback on their hands. I think he's got that kind of ability, and I love seeing him being able to adapt to that and handle that. So I just think they got to figure out this running game and get it going. I think we've talked. I don't think it was Mike Denbrock's best game called or game plan, but we know that he has done a better job as well. I'm just surprised that it happened the way it did. I just, when I watch Texas A&M, I think they're a good football team, that they're going to be a lot like Notre Dame this year. The more Marcel Reed feels and gets comfortable with that and develops as a passer, A&M is going to be a lot better down the road. And I think Notre Dame is very much that way. You're not going to want to play either of these teams at the end of the year. It's just right now, I think they're both kind of having the same situation where offensively it's good, but it's not great. Defensively, there's some holes there too. So it's a big, big game for Notre Dame, and they're going to have to figure out how to do this. Turnovers is another thing, Jamie. Notre Dame lived off turnovers last year. If they get the turnovers, I think they win this game. If they end up in a -2 again, we're probably going to end up with the same result. If you're Marcus Freeman, how do you address that? I mean, it's one thing to say we practice it and we try to do this and dislodge balls, but some guys were good at it and some guys aren't. Do you think the Miami game was just a one-off game, or do you think we'll see back to the same situation? And I don't think you get the turnovers playing the way you do, the way they did against. I think that's the biggest problem.
Yes.
100%.
100%.
You're not making turnovers because you're not playing aggressive. And so I think that if they play aggressive, we'll start to see that. Your thoughts here?
Yeah, that's what I think too. I think they're going to be more aggressive. While I do think obviously it's obvious for anyone who watched NFL this weekend that Xavier Watts, he's legit. Like, he was really good for Atlanta, and they miss him because he was the guy that you could always count on to, like, it didn't matter. Any big game, he was going to make 2 or 3 plays that helped flip a game for Notre Dame in their favor. I mean, heck, even in that Northern Illinois, he did his best to do it when he knocked the ball back in bounds there. Like, he is that kind of player. So you have to wait and see if, like, Notre Dame is going to get that from, like, say, like, their linebacking court, from, like, KVA or someone like that, right? But, like, that's a question. But I just think how they played specifically, and I would say specifically a linebacker, they were not downhill. You're just not going to be able to create those havoc plays if you're not playing that way. And I think that is going to be, like, probably the key to the game, really, because, you mentioned all the things about Carr and how, he got put in the situations that he shouldn't have been in that first game and still did well. I mean, how about if he gets a situation where, it's 1st and 10 at the A&M 19 after they turn the ball over, right? Like, Mike Denbrock, pretty great play caller in those sudden change opportunities, right? Like, how about if they run the ball and they're cheating up because they have to, those safeties keep creeping up. Well, then you can hit something over the top. Like, all of these kind of things there, that if those things happen for Notre Dame, you could just see, like, floodgates opening and them playing incredible. But they obviously have to happen. I do think that they will. I would be shocked if they didn't cause some turnovers in this game. And frankly, too, the one thing, and I'll say this because you mentioned about Reed as a passer, and he looked better in the first couple games. He was not good on 3rd down in these games. Bad on 3rd down last year. He was 99th in quarterback rating on 3rd down last year. He's 42.9% completions on 3rd down, on 3rd and 6 plus. If you win on 1st and 2nd down, you get them into 3rd and long. That's a pretty good situation. And he's also got a thing where ball placement, not great for him. That is inconsistent. He can deliver a dime, and then he'll throw one that is just, like, uncatchable. And he's a guy too. He, like, turned the ball over a lot at the end of last season. Hasn't been tested so far. He had 6 fumbles last season. He's barely been pressured in these first few games. So pressure on him is going to be huge.
Key matchups in this game. What do you think of the key matchups for Notre Dame? Who against who? What do you think are going to be the differences in this game?
Well, I think that, like, that matchup with Greathouse versus their nickel Tyreek Chappelle, who's a good player. That's going to be a key matchup. They need to get Greathouse going, and they need him to like win like he was winning in the end of the CFP there. That is going to be a key matchup. I mean, I think it goes without saying that Notre Dame has to win up front on both sides of the ball. Like, that is important, but specifically the tackles. Like, I'm talking about Emil Wagner and Anthony Knapp against Cassius Howell. And I would say Cassius Howell is so by far their best pass rusher compared to where they could maybe a little bit more come in waves. Last year, they have some young guys that I think are going to be exceptional later on, but they're still young. So I don't know if they're, how far they are along yet. But Cassius Howell, that's a guy that like they'll probably need to give those guys some help, but they need to just do a better job against those guys. And they need to run at him. They need to absolutely run at him. He is a speed rusher. He's not a guy that is great at the point of attack. He wants to sit back and rush the passer every time. So run at him. Also think that on defense, defensively, I mean, Zune, that is a big thing if he's not at his full capacity. Like, he got rolled up on. It wasn't like it didn't look great when it happened. So let's just say he sprained his knee, but he's like going to try to play through it or whatever. That's a guy they got to attack with pressure. That's a guy that, Bryce Young, you want to see him win against them in this game. You want to see those defensive tackles play much better. Not just Jared Dawson. I mean, Rubio played good versus the run, but like Anye and Heinisch, that's a key matchup with their interior guys.
That's what I was just going to mention. If A&M rushes for 150 yards, I'm going to be concerned. I just shouldn't happen. And again, I don't think that they're a bad rushing team. It's just, I think for Notre Dame to fix their problem, they're going to have to be better against the run, and they were bad. And as you mentioned against Howell, I completely and totally agree. A guy who's not good against the run, you can just destroy their confidence, if you just keep coming at them and it's a long day and you're just constantly going after them. And not only that, Jamie, you can speak to this better than I, but if you're getting run at all day, you don't have the energy to pass rush. You're just flat tired. You're done. So I hope that they do that very early in the game and often. And I think that they'll have some success with it. And they got to figure out the running game for sure. I like running at him because I saw the same thing on film that you did. And so we'll see. But to me, I'm going to be most concerned about the way Notre Dame's defense plays. Are they going to attack? Are they going to play like they did against Miami? If they play like they did against Miami, I'm going to be very concerned. But also, can Notre Dame stop the run? And I realized that wasn't necessarily the problem against Miami. But I do think it can be a problem throughout the year if they don't get this shored up. And I just didn't like how far and often they got pushed off the ball. I just didn't like that, especially as you mentioned, Anye, who I did think did some good things in the run game.
His good was really good, but he had too much bad.
Exactly. And Heinisch, I just think there was a lot of bad. And he's played better against the run before. So we got to hope that was not the situation that it's going to continue. But if it continues, then I think, captain or not, you have to do what's best for your team, right? You got to put the guys in there. And, at some point, when do you take a look at Mukum? When do you take a look at Sevillano? You know what I mean? If guys are getting pushed around that much. So let's just hope that that's not the case and they come out and do what they have to do. Again, show me. I want to see it. I think they can do it. I'm just not sure they will. I hope that you're right and they do it because they absolutely need to win this game. It's very critical. If you look at the recruiting list of guys that are coming for this weekend, huge game, one of the bigger ones that we've seen in a while. So the interest in Notre Dame football is there, right? Show them a good time. Show them an exciting time, an exciting night game that's going to help with recruiting. And so very, very big game for Marcus Freeman and the boys. We'll have to see how it goes. Mr. Flamong, our great producer, anything you want to add to the final bit of the shows here?
I think you guys did a good job of covering kind of everything that I'm feeling, thinking. I just, the thing that I kind of worry about is like the little things that always kind of went right for Notre Dame that don't have to go right, that have really nothing to do with how the team plays, like falling behind. They just never really fell behind last year. And what if they do it again? Like those little things that can affect how things go. Losing the coin toss. They never lost the coin toss last year. If you go back and look, like they always got the ball to start second half. In the first game, in the national title game, they didn't. And it went how it went. This first game, they didn't. And it went how it went. It's like little things like that. And so like my concern with everything, and I've been thinking about a lot, is like, what if everything is like not even 5% worse, like just 1-2% worse? Like that makes a huge difference in the outcomes of these particular games. And you look at like other teams across the country and the hot teams, just like you said, Texas A&M, like they got to feel good about themselves against some teams that aren't very good. Jamie's talking about how bad their defenses are. A team like USC, who I've kind of compared to Texas A&M a little bit, like they get 2 lemons.
Speaking of muffins, oh my god,
yeah, like
they're
they get
the 2 worst teams out there.
They get 2 lemons
Disgusting.
to start the season, and then they got these good feelings, right? And look, if Notre Dame's the better team, I do feel like they'll win the game, But there's little things about things that went right last year that don't have to go right this year. When you fall behind, 7-0, 10-0, that never happened last year. Is this team equipped to deal with that?
Penn State,
for sure. But that's obviously different quarterback, right? So, different team, right? Like you talked about Xavier Watts. Like, it's no surprise. We talk about where does it show up? It's no surprise that the first touchdown of the season allowed, something's going wrong in the back, right? Mm-hmm. Things just aren't going wrong in the back when Xavier Watts is back there. And that's just little stuff like that. So,
Jamie, I wanted to ask you this because I didn't hear your thoughts on this. Do you like third down rush, what they're doing with that? Do you like the personnel in the game and how they're attacking things on third down in that first game?
I didn't like what they did in terms of some of their pressure stuff. Like there was a couple things that I did like. There was a couple things that I did like on third down that I thought were good, but like I felt for if you're going to use Snead and KVA there and Bowen are like, you're playing 3 linebackers there, which I have no problem with because I think those guys are good. You have to do more and be more creative with that. So I thought there was a little bit lacking there of what I wanted to see in terms of like what they did in terms of like pressure packages with those guys. Like, I think that's something like I'd liked, but obviously Botello was good in that thing. Yeah. And like, you can line him up all over the place. But Dawson, I thought was great in that, he earned that spot. Like he showed that he earned that spot as like the interior guy there. And Boubacar certainly was good too, but I just think they can do a little bit more there. I'd also like to see them like kind of mix it up a little bit. And obviously you don't want to add too much to the plate if they're maybe struggling or, with some of the assignment stuff or whatever early on. But I would like to see like, they raving about Bryce Young. Bryce Young's not on third down there. Can they get him surprising on instead of like, maybe he's on for Snead or KVA in one of these situations or whatever, especially if they're not going to be as, diverse with some of the things they're doing with those guys. Right. So, I would like them to see them do more. And I didn't, and Greg can speak to this too. I didn't like there wasn't enough stuff on the back end that I thought caused any kind of confusion.
I was literally just thinking that they need to disguise their stuff. Like everyone's talking about zone versus man and everything. And sure, right? Like they were much better playing man in this last game than zone. But like it was every time Miami thought they were getting a coverage, that's the coverage. Like there's something with I don't know if it's their signals or they have a tell or what it is, but
Miami might have their signals.
They might have, but it's just like they need to, and I don't mean in a nefarious way teams do this, right? It's not a big deal. But I just think they need to disguise what they're doing better. Because like their zone stuff, Miami, every time it was zone, I know exactly where to go. I know exactly what the zone is. They knew the coverage. They were very organized with that. Like they need to do a better job of like, it looks like zone, I'm giving you man. It looks like man, I'm giving you zone. Because there just wasn't a ton of confusion for Miami in the entire game.
Back to this game, are you guys concerned about rush lane responsibility? Are you concerned about linebackers making tackles in space, especially because they didn't tackle very well in last game against a guy like Marcel Reed when he scrambles? I think that's something you got to be concerned about in this game is rush lane responsibilities, making sure that you're not getting way out of whack, so that creates big opportunities for him to pick up, 3rd and 7 with his legs. That's a tough thing. And then you look at zone, man, types of situations with that too. And the reason you're playing zone is for a guy like Marcel Reed, so he can't do those types of things. So I think that's a whole nother package that you got to kind of handle with this. Any thoughts from either of you guys on that?
Yeah, well, I think that's the other thing when you're having those guys, like you have 3 linebackers out there, you can be creative with what you do in terms of like spying guys, having guys like engage as you're taking up a blocker, but you're not actually rushing. Like Al Golden was tremendous at doing that, and did it great with Maris Leofau, who was like a really good spy. Like that is something to worry about in this game. I mean, I think I don't know about concerned is the right word. I'm not worried about those guys like being able to chase him down or whatever if they're set up properly, right? But he scrambles a lot. Like he scrambled 11 times in the first 2 games, 7 times against UTSA. Obviously, he was like he didn't play the full game in both those games, right? So, yeah, he's a guy that I think. I mean, you don't have to maybe spy him every time, but you're gonna have to spy him sometimes because that is definitely a thing for him. And I wouldn't call him like, it's not like he's Michael Vick, but if you give him space, he's gonna take it and he can hurt you.
Yeah. Anything you want to add, Greg?
Well, just I if they're using a true spy, then I'm good with it. If it's like if you're counting on the rush lane integrity, that makes me a little bit nervous, because I mean I just watched the Ravens try to do that and they got destroyed. And like if they're sending green dogs too, like that also makes me nervous, right? If that's what you're planning, right, is to send a backer, because then it's just like all it takes is one D tackle to get washed, and then you're completely open, and then it's like that concerns me a little bit. But
I do think they should send green dogs, and this is why, even though it's sorry to.
Well, do you think? Okay, so do you think that's kind of the answer is to see a hole or whatever, and then plug it up that way? So like so you're basically picking the hole. It's almost like a run kind of blitz kind of thing where he sees the hole and he's coming and it's like I'm filling the hole with it's almost like a run gap integrity kind of thing.
Yeah, and I would say because I think you should kind of like fill that, and that's what I mean by it, because it's different when it's a guy like KVA because that's a guy who can win in different ways, but their back's not great in pass pro. And that is something I think that, could, expose them in this game. So, and also I think if Drake Bowen is sitting back there spying, I don't feel like as confident. It's like, okay, now you got to chase, like he can run, but he's got to chase down Marcel Reed in space as opposed to I'm coming after him.
Yeah. And
I think that gives him a better shot.
It does kind of depend who it is.
Yes,
for sure.
Yeah. I'm concerned that the guy can get loose, but at the same time, I don't think Marcel Reed has had anywhere near the pressure he's going to see in this game. And I think Notre Dame with 4 will be able to pressure more than he saw in those games. He had a lot of time to throw the football, and that's why he's accurate. But usually when you pressure him, he's not as accurate. So, they're not an offense that's going to, take a lot of dink and dunk type of stuff. I don't think. But, I just have a feeling Notre Dame's going to come after him and not give him near as much time as he's had. And then we'll have to see how he performs and go from there. All right, folks, that's going to be it for the show. I hope everybody enjoyed that. We will be back next week to talk more Irish football. Hopefully it's a big Notre Dame win and also a great recruiting weekend for Notre Dame. Got to get back on the winning ways. Thanks, everybody, for listening and watching. We'll talk to you next week on Power Hour.